begin primary education until the age of 7. Here in the United States, they start at the age of 5. As we'll see, this is one of the reasons that the math standards has shown to be so developmentally inappropriate. Now, while we're on the topic of Singapore, since this and other similar systems are ones that are being touted that we should copy here in the United States, why don't we look at what some of their teachers have to say? Andrew Linford is a former Singapore International Teaching Associate, and in October of 2013, he actually traveled to Singapore to learn about their approach to teaching. He said, when I told Singaporean teachers one of the reasons I was in Singapore was to learn about their excellent education system, they would usually laugh at my naivety. Often, they would mention that Singapore was aspiring to be more like the United States in terms of moving away from testing, also trying to encourage more critical thinking and creativity in the classroom. Indeed, the program that took me to Singapore was trying to bring American and British styles of teaching over there to fix their system. Now, one of the things that these math standards require is a deeper understanding of numbers and math. This level of critical thinking sounds really good. But to teach it as a foundation, when children are not developmentally ready to understand critical thinking, leads to nothing but confusion. You see, the writers of the standards did not take into account that children are not just little adults. They're still developing. For most children, the ability to think abstractly and critically does not begin to develop until somewhere between the ages of 7 to 11 years old. And it's different for every child. And yet we see the requirement for abstract and critical thought brought all the way down to the very youngest of grades. Let's take a look at an example of this. Here we'll see a first grade math standard. This one talks about adding and subtracting within 20, and then it gives you a few different ways that you're supposed to teach it. Now this standard, and the idea that we see here, is something that we see repeated throughout the standards called making 10. And it leads to math problems that look something like this. Now this idea here, you've probably seen it in your children's homework, of breaking apart numbers is an abstract idea. Remember, children are not able to begin to understand abstract concepts until somewhere between 7 and 11. Yet that standard is written for a first grader, or age 6. This abstract idea also leads to subtraction problems that look more like addition problems, something like this. Now, to us adults, who are fully developed cognitively, that might make sense. This might be how we do it. But we've developed the abstract and critical thought process to know how to do it. And children at these ages haven't necessarily done so. But aside from what parents might think about this new way of doing math, what do the actual experts have to say? Because let's face it, just because something is different does not make it bad. Common Core supporters will tell you that this way of teaching math fosters critical thinking. But Ziad Gorman disagrees. He said in 2010 that some believe it's easier to teach high-level critical thinking than to teach the standard algorithm, how we probably taught how to do addition, etc. For adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing numbers, that standard algorithm is the only rich, powerful, beautiful theorems that you can teach elementary school kids. And to deny kids these theorems is to leave them unprepared. Now, the other thing Common Core supporters will willingly tell you is that standards promote learning fewer things at a deeper level. So, with fewer things being taught, that makes me think, what are they leaving out? Karen Wenning is an 8th grade teacher from Coldwater, Ohio, and she testified before the Ohio House in October of last year. She said there are many abstract concepts being taught when students are not capable of comprehending them. There are also good, practical concepts that are no longer being taught. I want to close this math section with a testimony from a math teacher in Tuscarawas County. She said this: as an educator, I have quite a few concerns with the math standards. First and foremost, Common Core is taking the common sense out of math and setting kids up for failure. It's not preparing them for real life. It If a child becomes a construction worker and his or her boss wants the employee to divide a piece of wood into so many equal pieces, the boss isn't going to wait around while the person draws a box to complete the problem in 10 minutes. When the standard algorithm could have it done in 30 seconds. If someone says they like Common Core math, they aren't truly teaching it. It took me 7 hours to teach myself how to divide using rectangular arrays and area models. Imagine how a 10, 11, or 12-year-old felt in my class trying to learn this material. It's frustrating as a teacher because there was nothing wrong with the standard way of doing division. We as teachers want support from the parents at home. But when the parents are frustrated and don't understand the concepts, it makes it difficult to mesh home and school together. Not all students learn the same way, but they are all expected to complete a math problem in the exact same manner as everyone else. And students need to have a basic understanding and mastery of skills before they are expected to do higher level things. An entire generation of children is being affected. Common Core slows down students' understanding of basic facts and operations because it wants them drawing boxes and diagrams and rectangular arrays to figure things out. I'd rather the kids use a calculator than have to draw these crazy pictures, and I don't like calculators. But they're more real life than this. Not preparing them for real life and setting kids up for failure. These are the real effects